At least 4 of these aesthetics revolve almost entirely around jeans and a white t-shirt with just like slightly varied accoutrements. Hey, I'm Caroline. Welcome back to my channel. I'm gonna be tier ranking some fashion aesthetics today, but first I actually wanted to thank the sponsor of this video, Parade. Regardless of any aesthetic term you might use to define your style, we all need underwear, right? I mean, that is truly something that defies any aesthetic. I'm so excited to be working with Parade because I truly do believe that having this sort of base under your outfit is what is going to set you up for success in not only feeling comfortable but also confident in what you're wearing. And if what you're wearing just so happens to be a cute matching brown underwear set, doesn't hurt. There's something on their site for everyone. I mean, I actually have one of their bralettes on with my overalls right now. Yeah. Hey now. If you've been in the market for some quality and supportive, but also cute, of course, underwear, then I am happy to be of service because Parade is actually having their Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale. And not only do they give me a discount code to share with you, but the discount code is actually early access. The sale is starting for the general public on November 17th with 30% off site-wide, but with my code, Caroline40 at checkout, you can receive not only 40% off site-wide, but also you can start shopping as early as November 14. Skip the line before all of the best stuff sells out. If I were to make a couple suggestions to you, like I said, I love a matching set. It's just kind of like this fun little secret that I'm wearing under my outfit that nobody else knows about, but I know, and it just gives me that extra little pep in my step. You can truly never go wrong with anything in a ttyl print. I also love this sort of ruffled underwear style. I find it so comfortable when I'm wearing it. Pink Satin Luxe set. It's actually the same material of the bralette that I'm wearing, also again with the matching underwear. I'll have a link to their site in my description box, so if you want to check them out, you can just click on that. And once again, make sure to use my code Caroline40 at checkout for that additional discount and early access. You're welcome. Thank you again to Parade for working with me, and I hope you get your hands on some goodies. Happy early Black Friday and Cyber Monday shopping. So, a couple months ago, I made a video where I ranked a bunch of upcoming trends for summer 2023, and you guys really seemed to like it, and just in general seem to like when I talk a bit of my shit, so I figured why not come back exercising apparently one of my better skills and rank some instead of fashion trends. We could rank some fashion aesthetics. Introducing our official ranking system for this video. There are 5 tiers starting off at the very top with no notes, pretty self-explanatory. These are aesthetics that I'm a fan of, dare I say even love. But obviously all of this is biased and completely based off of my opinion, and my opinion of these aesthetics is that I very much like them and even have incorporated elements of them into my own style and have maybe even played around with being a part of them before. Moving on to our next tier, which is look at the material. Now, these are aesthetics that I still would say I really like, and I can appreciate them for the vibe that they are cultivating, okay? Even if the vibe isn't always me and there are some elements of it that I personally wouldn't see myself wearing, I'm maybe not a fan of, I cannot deny that there is in fact a vibe being cultivated, and I have to respect it for that. Pass. Politely. Okay, so this is a tier where I myself might not be the biggest fan of these aesthetics, but I can understand why other people would be a fan of them. You know, it's not for me. You do you. This is my version of being a hater, but in a nice and sweet way. You know, because those are 2 words that everyone would use to describe me. Nice and sweet. Next up, we have a tier that was solely inspired by the tomato girl aesthetic that was circulating mainly on TikTok this summer, which is touch grass. Leaning more towards the chronically online aesthetics with this tier. And in my opinion, are some of these even aesthetics at all, or are they just a kind of cute, whimsical way of describing wearing the color red? You know, there's nothing intentionally harmful or upsetting about it, but for whatever reason, it does upset me. And I think that sometimes we need to log off TikTok and go touch some grass, as the name would suggest. And coming in hot at the very bottom of our ranking list with "It was ruined before she bought it." Again, pretty self-explanatory with this one. I don't like these. Any element of them. Any aspect of it. I don't like the vibe. Before officially getting into the ranking, I want to disclaim, like I always do with videos where I'm getting a little bit sassy, that It's just that. It's me being sassy. It's fun. It's not supposed to be taken too seriously. You know, these are just my opinions. All right, and who's to say that I even have good opinions or good taste? I think I do, but looking at some of the stuff I've worn in my past, you know, that's debatable. So take it with a grain of salt. First up, I figure we could start off on a positive note for this video with the Rockstar girlfriend aesthetic. All of the leather and animal print and denim and platform boots and vintage fur jackets that your heart could dream of. At least my heart could dream of and does dream of frequently. I will say I don't love the idea of defining a woman by the proximity she has to a certain kind of man, because we're talking about just the vibe, right? The outfit, the way that you are presenting yourself, which you can do dating anyone who's anything or just being single and nothing at all. I really like this aesthetic. Majority of its elements, which seem to be a mix of a kind of 70s rocker meets 90s grunge, are elements that I use in my style frequently. I think this might be a no-notes for me. I mean, I said I was starting off on a positive note. I don't really know what gets more positive than being at the top of the ranking. Okay, moving on to the next aesthetic, which is kind of a 2-for-1 with coquette and then an umbrella term under that aesthetic, which is blokette. And I'm saying this to you now and realizing that if I were to go back to the 1500s and try to explain any of this to a pilgrim, they'd be like, girl, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm just trying not to starve by the end of this month. What is a blokette? Coquette, which is essentially the art of adding a bow to any and everything you own, involves just that. A lot of bows and frills and ruffles and lace and shades of pink and white and cream. In my mind, it's a mix of this sort of frou-frou frilly princess meets Lana Del Rey Lolita the essence, and just that. The essence. Part of me is wanting to do no notes, but then another part is thinking more so look at the material, just because as much as I like this aesthetic, I don't think you would look at a lot of my outfits and define them under the coquette aesthetic. Now, on the other hand, we have blokette, which is a way of dressing that really incorporates those same elements of the coquette style, but is mixing them with this sort of sporty jersey-like piece. Think of a white long lacy skirt with some Adidas Sambas, a t-shirt with some sort of sporting number on the back, and throw some bows in your hair and you kind of got it. Similarly to coquette, I do really like blokette. I think it's cute, but unlike the coquette aesthetic, I do find this to be a bit more niche, micro trendy. It's like when I've seen someone dress this way, I immediately know that they've spent hours scrolling on Pinterest. Not always a bad thing. Okay, I mean, definitely something that I've been guilty of, but it just feels a little more impersonal to me, but I do think it's cute, which is why I think I want to put it at pass, but politely. Avant basic, which just saying those words aloud is giving me trauma flashbacks to 2020. Colorful is an understatement when it comes to this way of dressing. It is a funky, bold, maximalist style that incorporates anything from checkered to cow print, as well as the infamous House of Sunny Hockney dress. Never forget, as much as I'm trying. To me, this aesthetic was a real turning point in the way that the trend cycle operates, specifically in online and social media spaces. The amount of micro trends that make up this aesthetic cannot be understated, and it felt like no one was safe. I mean, myself included. I owned a pair of checkered print pants at one point. I don't still own them. They found a new home, and I don't think I will ever own a similar pair again, or a lot of similar items that were in this way of dressing. I'm almost tempted to do ruined before she bought it, just because it feels like an aesthetic that was never meant to last. It was set up to fail, and I mean, kind of expected coming out of the year 2020. What else would this aesthetic's fate be? Taking a sharp pivot to an aesthetic that has been around for decades and might have even been the first aesthetic that I was both aware as well as a fan of, which is the French girl. I mean, Look at these bangs that I got going on. Yeah, I would say I am aware of the French girl and still a fan to this day. Comprised of mainly closet staples, all worn in a simple yet effortlessly cool way. The French girl is never seen without her perfect fitting denim, a go-to white tee, her tousled hair, red tinted lips, and maybe a ballet flat if she's feeling crazy. The pinnacle of this style, at least in my opinion, is none other than Jane Birkin, who, fun fact, was actually born and raised in England, but is most often associated with like the famous French style. The impact of her basket bag alone, say less. I was listening to a podcast recently where they actually brought up the French girl aesthetic, and they had mentioned that it is one of the most searched terms still online to this day, and it got me curious, and so I went on Vogue and I searched French girl style, and literally over 10,000 articles came up. So for that reason, and also the reasoning of my bangs that I mentioned earlier, I'm tempted to do no notes. But the thing is, I do have notes. There are a lot of aspects of this aesthetic that I enjoy, but there are some that I don't enjoy so much, mainly how simple it can look sometimes, and especially how that looks on majority of the inspo photos that you find when you search French girl aesthetic, which is just really thin, white, naturally beautiful women. Do I want her outfit or do I just want to look like her? Look at the material. Feels like the solid answer for this. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, Jane. Please forgive me. I love you. You're no notes. It's just some of the others. Whimsy goth, which admittedly I am not the most familiar with as an aesthetic, but upon researching it for this video, I found a lot of black, velvet, sexy 90s witch sort of looks, and my interest was piqued, to say the least. Looking at the inspiration photos for this aesthetic, I literally cannot think of one negative thing to say about it. I already incorporate a lot of the elements of this style into the way that I dress, and after looking at these photos, I want to incorporate more of them. Like, I am obsessed. I feel like I'm even tempted to do no notes because I don't have any. It's just the only note is that I need to start wearing more of this style, like, as soon as possible. Moving on, we have made it to an aesthetic that I briefly mentioned earlier on in this video, and not in the most positive of lights, which is the tomato girl aesthetic. I can't lie and act like the first time that I became aware that this was even an aesthetic, when I saw it on TikTok, it didn't immediately make me upset because I just don't understand what about wearing red in the summertime makes up an aesthetic. In an effort not to sound like a total and complete bitch right now, I do want to explain, because I feel like almost all of the aesthetics that I'm mentioning in this video, I'm not doing super big deep dives into because this video would be literally 8 hours long, but what makes them an aesthetic goes so much more beyond just a certain component of clothing that you're wearing. You know, it really is this way of presenting yourself to the world, as well as how you want to be perceived by the world. And even going beyond fashion, there's also hobbies that can make up different aesthetics, you know, certain movies and music and books that are being consumed, and I just don't feel like the tomato girl falls into any of those categories. And beyond just wearing a pop of red in the season of summer, like, there's nothing more to it. I'm not being snarky for no reason, okay? It feels justified, at least to me, in my head, which is why I created the touch grass category, and why tomato girl as my inspiration for this category is going to be its first, but not only member. Oh, well, I thought I might be able to redeem myself and my niceness a bit with this next aesthetic that we're talking about, but it's indie sleaze, which I don't feel so nice about, if you couldn't tell. Comprised of anything from metallics and animal prints to teeny tiny micro shorts, fishnet stockings. There were some leathers and some furs, a lot of unitards, and even more glitter, as well as what felt like a big obsession with England and the Union Jack symbol. More important than any of those elements is the one key core defining quality of the indie sleaze aesthetic, which is the carefree party girl vibe, which the time when it was popular and I was about 10 years old didn't really appeal to me. I think I was still playing with American Girl dolls at the time. And almost a decade later, it still doesn't really appeal to me. Even though the American Girl dolls are gone. Are they really gone for me, though, considering I dressed up as one for Halloween last year? Whenever indie sleaze comes up, I always think of the show Skins, which I didn't watch at the time, but don't you worry, because I managed to have depression and an eating disorder without it. The thing about this aesthetic that makes me not such a fan of it is the lifestyle that I feel like it perpetuates and a lot of the imagery that came along with the aesthetic at the time. It does have some outfits that involve a vintage fur coat that I like, and some elements do kind of intersect with the Rockstar girlfriend aesthetic. I'm not going to deny that. Indie sleaze, though, ruined before she bought it. I think that's where I'm going to put it, just because if we were only talking about the clothes, maybe it would be a pass, politely, but we're not. We're talking about the whole aesthetic and its overall effects, and so because of that, Cottage Core, which you might be able to guess based off the instant pep in my step, that I am a fan of the Cottage Core aesthetic, so much so actually that it is immediately gonna be going up into no notes. Out of all of the aesthetics, not just the ones that I'm mentioning in this video, but just ever to exist, I think that my style and the pieces in my wardrobe align most with this aesthetic. It's kind of just like Cottage Core, but a cottage in the 70s. And that's me. I think that's gonna be that. Just keep it short and sweet. Cottage Core. No notes, no questions. Moving on to the next aesthetic, which is actually another one I am a big fan of, but this one actually might be kind of surprising because it's Y2K, but specifically a subsect of Y2K called McBling. Because Y2K really encapsulates a moment of time, there are so many just vast elements that compose this aesthetic, but McBling is often what is most associated when talking about Y2K. Think Juicy Couture tracksuit and Von Dutch hat and that rainbow print Louis Vuitton monogram, as well as any and everything being bedazzled and embellished. Some of my favorite iconic paparazzi photos of celebrities from this time period, like Paris Hilton, Beyonce, Britney Spears, just all McBlinged out. As positively as I am speaking about this aesthetic, I do think I'm gonna have to put it in Look at the Material, just because as much as I do love all of the elements of really Y2K in general, I knew as soon as the style started trending that it was just not a style for me. And it's not even because I don't like the elements of it. I clearly do. I just have never thought they suited me super well, and I just never really felt like they aligned with my personal style. I don't tend to gravitate towards anything really that's Y2K, but I always love seeing it on other people. I just think it's so fun, and so for that reason, and for all of the iconic paparazzi photos of celebrities from this time period, I am going to put it in Look at the Material. Because it can't be no notes, because the note is that it doesn't look good on me. The Scandi Girl, which similarly to the French Girl, actually wears a lot of more simple and closet staple clothing with neutral colors and silhouettes, but unlike the French Girl, she became popular in a climate that is colder, so it involves a lot of layering and oversized blazers and a tendency to gravitate towards sneakers rather than a ballet flat. There's this sort of flirtiness to the French Girl aesthetic that I feel like the Scandi Girl aesthetic lacks, and is one of the reasons why it just didn't hit the same for me. And it's also why I think I'm gonna put it in pass politely, though. Moving along to an aesthetic where I'm really about to expose myself with this actually, which is soft grunge. If you have ever had access to a Tumblr, then you have shown some subsequent side effects of the soft grunge movement. Fun fact for you though, I was never on Tumblr, which kind of makes the whole mental illness eating disorder thing even crazier, but I've always just been a Pinterest girl, and I might be really showing my age here at the haggard and weathered 25, but I was really into Polyvore. So if you know, you know. Between the American Apparel tennis skirt, Doc Martens, fishnet stockings, stripes, and stretchy tattoo chokers, this was an aesthetic that left an impression even on people like me who didn't really participate in it. I mean, I was taken in by the American Apparel tennis skirts. I got a yellow one my junior year of high school. It's gotta be look at the material. There's just no other option. If for any reason, this very specific photo, that is always what I think about when this aesthetic comes up. History was made that day with that photo. Do you think they knew what they were doing? It's iconic. Another 2-for-1 with this next aesthetic being coastal grandmother and coastal cowgirl, which I'm smiling as I'm telling you this, but they are both directly going into touch grass. How I feel about Tomato Girl is how I feel about both coastal grandmother and coastal cowgirl, which is that they are not real aesthetics and you will not convince me otherwise. From all the photos that I've seen, at least, the coastal grandmother just appears to be what the Scandi Girl would wear on vacation with her family over the summertime. Very important to note though that you have to be holding up a glass of white wine in front of your face when any photo is taken of you, which is actually something I can get behind. I mean, there's some kind of New England preppy aspects to some of these photos, but we need to be serious here. It's going in touch grass. And coastal grandmother, I'm not even getting into that. I looked up photos and it is literally a white maxi dress with cowgirl boots. I have to draw the line. And it's here. And I think both of these are actually cute. They're just not aesthetics. And we need to log off TikTok. Royal Core, which is basically just Sofia Coppola's version of Marie Antoinette, but make it 2023. Now, as someone who first saw Marie Antoinette when they were 8 years old and then proceeded to dress up that same year as Marie Antoinette for Halloween, where do we think this aesthetic is gonna go for me? I will say that when I first heard about Royal Core, I was a bit confused because I didn't entirely understand the aesthetic as a whole and the elements of it, but beyond looking past what seemed to be a lot of just like costume party inspiration photos that were themed as Marie Antoinette, there are actually some really cool elements to this aesthetic that I've been using in my style and will continue to use. The corsetry and boning and use of texture and color palettes as well as pearl and ribbon accessorizing, specifically in the hair, which I really love. I just think this is a great aesthetic. Okay, I'm being biased. Do I even really know if it should qualify as an aesthetic? I'm not at liberty to say, especially after a lot of the shit that I've been talking. It's going in no notes for me though. What do you expect from someone who 4 out of 5 of their favorite movies are Marie Antoinette, Emma, Pride and Prejudice, and Little Women? Taking it back once again to the 2010s and for what is hopefully at least the last time with this next aesthetic being twee. Polka dots, skater skirts, Oxford loafers, swallow print, owl appliques, and so many mustaches. Just, it is really alarming and honestly threatening to look back on. I feel so conflicted about this aesthetic, honestly, because on the one hand, I just think it is so fucking ugly. Like, truly, none of these things aged well, and I do not want any of them to come back in style, but on the other hand, it is so ridiculous and unserious the way that some people were dressing in this time. I just have to respect it. Some people might have forgotten or were maybe never even aware because of the recent rebranding of Miu Miu, but I have certainly not forgotten the way that that brand covered everything in swallow print in the 2010s. And the girls were eating it up too. Okay, they had no complaints. I don't know if this is just purely based off of nostalgia that I'm very tempted to put this in Look at the Material, because I'm looking and it is unhinged, but in kind of an amazing way. I cannot believe that people were dressing like this. I mean, I'm sure the same thing is going to be said when we look back at what we're wearing 10 years from now. I mean, I look back at what we were wearing in 2020 with Avant Basic and I'm like, what the fuck? So, quiet luxury, old money, stealth wealth, all 3 different aesthetics that to me fall under the same umbrella, which just so happens to be an umbrella I don't light. I've briefly mentioned in the past my disdain for these aesthetics, and so this might not be a complete shock to some of you, but I don't know, there's just something about me as a person in the middle class cosplaying as someone who is a part of the top 1% while wearing a Zara blazer that's not really doing it. I mean, okay, there are, I will say, some elements of particularly the old money umbrella that is very East Coast preppy schoolgirl. Think Blair Waldorf in the first 2 seasons of Gossip Girl that I do like. Okay, like, I'll give credit where credit is due. If there was ever an aesthetic that involved super hot people in super beautiful backgrounds trying to sell you on their agenda, it would be all 3 of these aesthetics. And so for that purpose, it's going in ruined before she bought it. I don't think that it always translates from how it looks in photos and on TV shows into real life, mainly because the people in these photos are probably wearing some designer label $3,000 blazer that just doesn't quite compare with your $40 Zara one, you know? So with that completely negative take, it's gonna be it for this video, actually. Initially, I planned on ranking like 12 more aesthetics, but I just do not have the time, the camera battery left, and also I am losing daylight, so I'm just gonna have to wrap it up here. But if you would maybe be interested in seeing a part 2, or I could even make a video going into the origin of aesthetics and deep diving into that and how it's transformed over the years. I don't know, does that sound interesting? Would you be interested in that? Let me know. I do really hope that you enjoyed this video and the aesthetics that I did get around to ranking. Thank you again to Parade for working with me. If you want to check them out and get your hands on some of your own Parade goodies, make sure to use my discount, of course, okay? Everything will be linked in that description box below. Stay sexy, and I will see you next time in my next video. Bye.